patient with yourself. It's not the last step that you take, you know. The next step is not the last one. You might be successful, you might fail, but everything that you do is a learning curve, you know. Failing is good, although painful, you know, but you learn of it.
Hey folks, Garrett here. In this last episode of Season 4 of the Most Awesome Founder podcast, we introduce Christoph Krois, mission-driven corporate entrepreneur and founder and co-head of the Siemens innovation ecosystem. Christoph's mission is both an ambitious and a challenging one, driving innovation projects at one of the world's largest companies. We'll be talking open innovation, leveraging the unfair advantages of scale, driving rapid change in naturally slow-moving organizations, and building innovation teams that can drive change from the inside out. So if you, like me, are fascinated by the topic of corporate entrepreneurship and innovation management, you should really appreciate this episode. Hope you enjoy it as much as Dries and I did recording it.
This episode is brought to you by WHU, the Otto Beisheim School of Management. WHU is reshaping the way students learn about business, management, finance, and entrepreneurship through its innovative programs and partnerships in Germany and across the globe. To learn more about this globally ranked university, visit whu.edu today.
Coming to you from WHU on the banks of the Rhine River in beautiful Vallendar, Germany. This is the best and most awesome founder podcast. A show about entrepreneurs, innovators, advisors, and educators, and the stories that make them who they are today.
Christoph Krois, thank you so much for joining us on our humble podcast today. We're really looking forward to hearing your story and having a conversation.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a real big honor for me.
Once again, as I've had more recently, I've got my colleague, Professor Dries Foms, who's joining us, and he was so kind as to organize this conversation. And I'm sure he's got some really interesting topics that he wants to cover with you as well. But, we start all of the podcasts kind of with the same question in mind. You know, as big advocates of storytelling, it's always nice to get a little insight into the person who's on the other side of the microphone. So Christoph, maybe you could start telling us a little bit about your career trajectory, your journey, where you come from, and how you ended up where you are today.
Well, I've come a long way, to be honest. With many different positions and stations and going into wrong directions. In German, we would say I was on the Holzweg. You know, if you translate it literally, it would be Woodway, but this wouldn't make sense at all. So where shall I start? Well, now I'm kind of in heaven since I'm allowed to drive innovation, which is really touching my heart and giving people the opportunity to grow and do innovation faster and more efficient in a room that I can hopefully provide more and more for them. So how did I get there? And this was quite a journey on the way. So I was in middle school, I would say, and I didn't know what to do. So I started out in a corporation next to my house, which was not far to drive. So I was an apprentice in electronics and doing maintenance for production machines. And so the task was to repair these machines to be most efficient in production there. And I saw my colleagues doing night shifts and I said, well, is that all? Having walked through the apprenticeship with 21 and that's it. Shall I do this for the rest of my life? No. So I started out and did my high school or my Abitur on the second way in German, second path. And so I did my Abitur, and then I studied electronics, which was interesting. And I got some insights in a bigger corporation doing lights, Osram, you might know that company, and I was in product management. It was very interesting, with lights and how do people, create new products and how do they market it. It was really interesting. So this seemed to be a little bit entrepreneurial, and that was so different from being, in maintenance in a production site where your boss tells you how to take your screwdriver into your left or right hand. You have to use the red instead of the green screwdriver. This was so different, and I loved it. And I said, well, there must be more. So during the studies, when I was there working there as a working student or intern, so this seemed to be very, very interesting. And after my studies, I started out in a mobile phone company, Siemens Mobile. And this was great, new technology, innovative things, and I saw, wow, creating new products in sexy businesses, mobile phones were the hot as ... the hot shit of that time, and it was so much fun in a young team creating, and this was so great. But still, I was in R&D and in product management, and it was so small, you could influence maybe the button and the human machine interface a little bit, How does the mobile phone react if you click on or plug in a headset, or if you connect it to a Bluetooth device, etc. This was still too small. Was that it? Of course not. Entrepreneurial thoughts, and I became a project manager in international projects there, and still wasn't, big enough, working on entrepreneurial decision making, not just a button X, Y, or Z. So I changed completely the businesses I was working in, and I went to chemical industry, becoming a product manager on my own, being an electrical engineer in the chemical industry for printing inks. So that was like a cultural clash, to be honest, knowing nothing about all these things in chemistry, and still being interested in influencing products and life cycles and marketing and everything. And so I learned, sometimes the hard way, to influence products, to get together with customers and convince them to buy my inks. Of course, my team's inks. It was not just me, it was just helping the others to do their jobs, to be honest, but we were a team, going into that. And what can I say? Learning the hard way, influencing, doing marketing as an electrical engineer. So I always came to my limits. And this was sometimes hard because I did not speak their language. And I had to learn it. Either you grow or you break. That's it.
But Christoph, sorry to interrupt you, but I really now have a question for you, because when I hear this story, why didn't you never create your own company? That seems to be the logical answer to this struggle, not that at a certain...
On what? I did not have an idea on what. And I was an electrical engineer, Okay. So I just thought, well, I want to learn more. I want to see more from the world. My spot where I was too small, and I didn't dare to start something new. So in the first place, I just wanted to grow, get into that growth journey, not thinking about my own startup, to be honest.
Okay.
And so struggling with all this MBA stuff, being responsible for figures and money and all these things, I thought, well, how can I learn that? And then I found this MBA program on innovation and business creation at TU Munich. Sorry, Dries, but I think these two are quite friendly as far as I've seen. And I met people that were not just in corporations and complaining about over hours and how much days of vacation do you have left, and how can I get off my office very quickly. They saw the world as an opportunity, not as an obstacle. I met founders, of startups. I met corporate innovators that, said, wow, I have an opportunity to grow something, to create a startup, etc., etc. What is open innovation? What are all these things? The concept of Henry Chesbrough, which you had in the other podcast, that was a completely new world. And I loved it. I still got goosebumps. So this was really, really a new world for me, seeing the world as a chance, to found something, to see problems as an opportunity to build something.
So Christoph, you started at Siemens, then you moved into a chemical industry where you are now working on innovation and working on products, but in a domain that you weren't particularly familiar with. Where did you go from after the chemical journey? And bring us to the current day. Yeah.
So I finished my MBA with this huge, great energy of learning in that MBA program. And this was, for the first time, to be honest, something I hated school. I hated university. But with this MBA, I loved the whole thing. So, and then I understood that I want to change. So I changed within this company to a strategic position to make this company grow into the future, because the digital threat was there, printing business, printing like newspapers, etc., etc. Digitalization that does not really go together very easily. And therefore, they already saw that there's something coming up and they wanted to change. So I went to this department of corporate planning and to see what can we do with the chemical history and growing into the future. And so we did a lot. And but the first bad hit to this company arrived. So there was not much money and no much investment and no much time to invest in something new. So they went into survival mode. And I said, okay, you guys save your lives, and I have to move on because innovation is what my heart is ticking to. So I moved on and went back to Siemens to do some innovation consultancy. So still learning. So I knew that this is, close to my heart, and I still was not ready enough to go into an own business. But I knew that this is a world I loved. So I went to in-house consulting and saw different industries like healthcare, industry, energy, IoT, whatever is there, and I learned a lot. Still growing and understanding how can we leverage all these methods and tools of business modeling, value proposition design, job to be done, all these things. So these methods and tools were the right things to use to help my clients to grow their business and to survive. And then I understood that this is too small for me, because helping others and going from project to project, and when it gets really interesting, I have to move because they ran out of money. And although I would love to help them, in creating new businesses, I had to go away. So I changed into a different department, enabling me to create something new. or to grow like a method or a tool, which started out with open innovation, anchoring this method and tool, or re-anchoring. We had a early start on open innovation there, but then I would say the big weather conditions changed away from open innovation. And then I saw the opportunity in that department to grow that again. So we started out with little teams and to spread the news and with projects, and we were very successful with scouting open innovation methods and tools, applying them already in the MVP status or in the proof of concept status to our businesses, and created quite some impact. And customers were happy. And growing this community and sharing that to our colleagues within Siemens was very successful. And what I saw then was, most of the departments in this more than 380,000 employees, huge company, struggle always at the same position. They don't know which methods are around, which tools are around, where are experts around, et cetera, et cetera. So we have a saying there, and this is, I think, valid for all these companies out there: if Siemens knew what Siemens knows. And this applies for GE, for all these other companies that you can imagine. And this was especially true for all these innovators there.
But Christoph, do you have an explanation for that? Because indeed, I also see that with a lot of companies that they actually don't know what they have. What is the explanation for that?
Well, I think a person or a team can only digest a certain amount of information, right? And although all the information is around, you need to find it. You need to be aware, where do I have to go to find the information that I need right now, right at my desk, in the situation where I am in my innovation project. So today I need maybe an expert in blockchain, and tomorrow I need someone to help me and finding how do I define a persona.
No.
So I'm curious about this topic. There's all of these resources that are at your disposal in a large organization. Maybe the processes aren't there to find them, or the systems aren't in place, but most of these people in a bigger company have specific roles to fill, right? So how easy is it to take these resources off other projects, other priorities, and be able to leverage it to actually be a resource for innovation rather than a resource for the core function that they would already be allocated to?
Well, somehow we are organized also as service centers. So, in general, innovation is about people, right? People make innovation happen. So on one hand, there are people who have needs. And some are there who have something that they can provide. And how do we matchmake them? How do we bring them together? So we have people who are service businesses. We have a corporate technology department, and they have all these beautiful technologies, that they are looking into and doing science on that, and preparing everything to be applied in the businesses. So they want to sell their findings to the businesses. But do the businesses know where to look, where to find those people? And this was missing, like a easy access, as we found, platform maybe, to find specifically everything for innovators.
You say platform. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about that. Because is that a process? Is that a culture change? Is that some kind of enabling technology? What helps to unlock those resources to be able to mobilize them for someone like you or your teams that are driving change?
we say sharing is caring. Yeah. And all the innovators came into the same situation, that they were looking for something but couldn't find it. So we were, thinking, what if we brought people together and provide a fertile space for them, a marketplace where they can share their services and their abilities and competences, and others could find their opportunities or apply these methods and tools from what is around. And so we started out asking people, well, would you be open to share what you do? And others, what would you be looking for? And so we started out like with 10, 20 people, which were in our Outlook, email stores and, in our address places. And then we invited some to share their information. And so we started out this platform to grow. And we attracted more and more people, and they came and joined in. And we then said, well, let's create a software together with a supplier to do this marketplace in a digital version, so everyone can find each other, not just internally, but also externally. Since I come from an open innovation position, and with an open heart, because there is intelligence outside our corporation, as I always say, in a trying to be funny, don't get it too serious, but big corporations, and I've seen different ones, always tend to solve their problems for themselves. Mm. And reinventing the wheel is easy because you might have the workforce to do that, but it's not efficient because the world is VUCA, that, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And we have to be fast. And this huge ocean tanker of huge organization, moving that fast is not always easy, but you can team up with other corporations, with startups, with universities, with your customers, and with individuals that have the knowledge which you can onboard to co-create together to get the things done. And this mindset is valid for internal, since we have a huge organization of more than 300,000 people. And of course, this is even more true for the billions of people out there you can connect with and get your innovation done. So that was the reason why we built this innovation ecosystem, how we call that.
But Christoph, you were mentioning the word mindsets, but what kind of mindsets do you actually need to build a kind of corporate that is open to the outside world? Because I actually think that's not that straightforward to have that kind of mindset.
Well, of course, it's about it's a growth mindset, I would say. Always trying to find the best way to solve the issues and the obstacles and the problems or challenges that you have in front of you at your desk, wherever you are in your innovation journey, for example. And who could solve that in the best possible way? It's a make or buy decision, or a make or co-create a situation. And I always say my job is done when every person in our corporation is able to freely decide, will I do it by myself in the best possible way? Or will I select from a huge toolbox the best possible way to get that thing done? So, and that could be a university, could someone be in Brazil, in South Africa, in USA, in Portugal, I don't know, or maybe the neighbor next door who I don't know of, until I have my ecosystem ready where I can search for the people I need to get the things done.
I'm interested in the ecosystem that you've built, because you brought up an example in your previous part of your career where you were working for a company. It was the chemical company. It was challenging. You were doing innovation. And then there were external variables that deprioritized perhaps what you were working on. I do a lot of work with startup accelerators. Some are partnered with corporates and they have a lot of momentum for a little while. And then maybe there's a leadership change or a refocus of priorities of the mothership, and innovation projects can get defunded or deprioritized. How do you maintain a program like this within a company of so many people and maintain it through changes in climate and leadership over the long term?
That's a good thing, because in one of my roles, I'm also responsible for the entrepreneurs program at Siemens. We call it Entrepreneurs Bootcamp, and this is exactly what we do. So we try to connect entrepreneurs with their purpose, make them strong and resilient to overcome this death valley, to withstand maybe the immune system of an existing organization, or maybe priority shifts, what you just mentioned, or other obstacles to get their startup within the organization done or make them successful, because nobody's waiting for them, and there's an immune system that doesn't want to change. So they need to be strong, and they need to be able to play on the piano, maybe, of this, what I call unfair advantages, to leverage the resources and the connections that this huge organization has to get through the doors and holes, to finally arrive to the market to be successful in their internal startup journey. This is exactly what we apply also for our innovation ecosystem. I would regard myself as an entrepreneur, having or building this innovation ecosystem.
It sounds like that there's certain characteristics that people require in that context, a level of resilience and maybe patience and drive. I've spoken to a number of innovators that say they always respect the corporate entrepreneurs almost more than the startup entrepreneurs, because even though they have all these resources at their disposal, sometimes the process isn't as free or as easy, and there can be obstacles in the way. From your perspective, I know a lot of really innovative minds that work for big companies that maybe don't have the innovation infrastructure that Siemens has, but they want to drive this type of change and this type of innovation. What advice do you have for someone in a company that's maybe not like Siemens, that wants to do something that you've been able to accomplish in your company?
Well, there's a saying, I think it was from the US Marines, or maybe also from the Indians, I'm not sure, but it says, if you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, walk with a team, go together. So that was also my failure in the past. I tried to do it on my own and I failed, and it was sometimes very painful to fail on the way. At this point, especially with the innovation ecosystem, we built a team believing in what we wanted to do or what we are doing now. And so it met our purpose to bring together the people, to provide this fertile space to make innovation happen. And then we gathered some more people. We gathered departments or business units all around the corporation to invest in this innovation ecosystem. Not much, but it was kind of a small but significant investment for everyone. And so if they invest in something, they have to say why they are spending the money on this. They have to judge their investments. So they are all looking into creating some value for that and getting some value out of it. And by bringing together the business owners, my team, which I'm not responsible for in the main I'm not a department head. So we are a self-organized team, and we believe in that story. And so we go together, and everyone has different abilities and competences. And whenever one person cannot solve it, another person is there to take over. So diversity is key, and a team that is really believing it and working day and night to get that thing done. So that is a huge difference.
But I'm still looking a bit for the magical ingredient that you have, because what you're telling is, okay, you start with a small group of enthusiastic people. I have a great team that has a clear purpose, is enthusiastic. And then in the end, everybody participates and everybody is happy. That in that way, it sounds very easy. Whereas I see that a lot of companies are struggling with this a lot. So I'm still looking a bit like, where is the magical ingredient that explains why this Siemens ecosystem is such a success?
Well, we have asked ourselves the questions exactly in the Entrepreneurs Bootcamp. What is the difference when innovations get, to the road, when they are successful and when not? And you can bring it back to the team. Okay. And this is something that venture capitalists are also saying. There are 3 ingredients for a successful startup: team, team, and team. They are investing, and everyone is investing in the team, because the idea is pivoting anyways on the way. So you will never come out of this startup journey like you go in with the idea, because you're learning, you're testing your critical assumptions, and you're failing fast, etc., etc. But as a team, when you are resilient and strong, and you have the same values that you share, and you really believe in that, then of course you are frustrated, and you're shouting at each other or whatever happens, but you always get back to, why did we start this? What is our purpose? What is our inner energy? And which superpowers do we have to get that done?
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. Team, and team should be your first criteria for anything, and it's usually the first failure point in an organization, particularly in a startup. One of the other failure points is running out of time, right? And the combination of time and money and resources. One of the things that you mentioned is that Siemens made an investment into your initiative. Venture capitalists look at investments on 10-year time horizons. Corporates often look at investments on quarterly or annual time horizons, which can very much run into conflicts with the higher tier, the more disruptive innovations. You must have some kind of longer term commitment from the mothership in order to do what you do, or are you subject to the same shorter time horizons that other business units might be?
To be honest, we are alive officially since 1 year. So we are very young and very fresh. And the immune system has maybe not, taken a deep look at us.
You have not been noticed by the immune system.
Well, it's a balance, of course. Of course, their expectations are growing, and we have taken a look also in the bootcamp preparation about this topic, and what we have seen is that there's a huge difference how corporates look at their own startups and how they are looking on external startups. And I'm not talking about Siemens, but in particular, but in general, I would say. So what is the difference? So if you're taking a look at an external startup or independent startup, they are investing all their time, all their energy, like 60, 80, 100, 120 hours, 24/7 into their startup. There's nothing but the startup. And of course, they have to look into investors, et cetera, et cetera. But if they're investors, they make sure that their investment is really well served. They are trying to create a safe room so the startup can really concentrate on what they're doing, right? They're trying to bring in the networks and everything so the startup can grow from a little plant to a nice little tree. Yeah. So what is the difference to a corporation? So if you're working in a standard department, then you have a great idea and you maybe find people that are doing great things or want to do that with you. And then you start this. And what is the corporation expecting? They're not giving you the time to work on that. Maybe if you're lucky, 20%, right? No, we're not talking about 100%. Yeah. Or you have to work on it, in overtime. You have to do your standard job and do the startup in extra time. No money, no time. Well, the team is like, everyone is like investing private time on that. And the expectations on the delivery are the same like on external startups. Wow, how can you compare that without any safe room, without any support, without any something? Same expectations. And everyone is saying, wow, all these great startups out there. But if you would nurture the internal startups in the same way like we do the external ones, wow, if we could train them, make them strong, resilient, if you provide them with all these methods and tools that are around you, like design thinking, lean startup, you name it, all of them. And this is a very important thing, train them on how to leverage this unfair advantage of a huge corporation. Access to data, access to markets, access to customers, access to technologies, production capacities, all these things. If they could leverage that in a huge amount or in a huge scale, then I think they would be invincible. Yeah. Or invincible, sorry.
So, I mean, there's so many resources at your disposal. Dries and I have had some interesting conversations, like you said, with Henry Chesborough, with Steve Blank, with different folks. I want to bring Steve Blank into the equation really quickly because we got a really nice kind of contrast with him and Henry. And, Steve's hypothesis, one of his hypotheses is this, he talks quite a bit about, how challenging it is for big companies to really engage in disruptive innovation. The larger the company, the better they are at incremental innovation, the iPhone 6 to iPhone 7 or new versions and smaller things. He talks about innovation theater. Big companies doing these innovation things, but since they're not really integrated into the core function of that company, that oftentimes it's subjected to the whims and whimsies and don't really affect the bottom line. What is your perspective on this concept of innovation theater, and how can you overcome that? Because I can tell you, Steve Blank said he doesn't have a solution yet. And I think he's been thinking about it for a while. So we're always really interested to hear, how you make sure it's not really sexy on the outside, but is actually having those tangible impacts.
Yes, Steve was not sharing your enthusiasm about the unfair advantage of big companies, I have to say.
I have a gut feeling, okay? We did talk about teams. Mm-hmm. Henry Chesborough did talk about the Procter & Gamble case where open innovation was so successful before. Mm-hmm. And then with the change of management, they weren't successful with open innovation, for different reasons. So, and I think it's related also to the team. If you have the right team in a corporation that enables startups or innovation growth in a bigger corporation, that really, breathe this innovation feeling, everything, this growth mindset, this empowerment and everything, then they could enable teams to really do some great innovation. If not, if you have, managers that corporations always think, well, you got the methods, you got the tools, you got highly paid managers, and everything gets done. No, you need people who really love what they do, who really love to enable people, for example, to get that on the road. So if people don't feel it, then you get innovation theater. If people get a psychological safe space in bigger corporations where they can really grow and create something new, and of course, the real world will hit, hard enough. But for a certain time, they need to be protected, like a seed growing, in the first little centimeters. It needs to be some nurturing, And when this is done, and if like a real startup environment is there with people who really breathe everything and provide the space, then there is enough room to grow. And this was the example of Henry Chesbrough, I think. When the management changed, everything went down. So same applies for me to bigger corporations. If you have people there who really can provide the space, who really believe in that, and if the company is investing in those people and providing them, to create and believing in them to provide the space, then you can do it.
I want to take it just to put myself in the shoes of some of our audience a little bit. Young, innovative minds that are thinking, hey, maybe like you, I don't really know if I have a startup idea or something I want to pursue right now, but I really want to drive change and innovation. They're starting their career. They're looking for companies that they can work for. You talk a lot about, having the right people around you, but if you're on the outside shopping for a career move, maybe you don't get that level of depth of getting to know the potential team you'll be working with. What are some of the signals and signs to look for in selecting a company that you want to work for that you think you can, be able to innovate in? What are those telltale signs from the organizational level to look for?
First of all, I would work for a company where I think I can connect personally with the products or with the services and what they do. So if you connect to that, if you can identify with it, I love my company because we can influence all this infrastructure to get more sustainable, to change everything, to make the people travel safe, commute safe on one hand, produce in a more sustainable way, for example, et cetera, et cetera. So I can, help to have a more sustainable world. And Siemens is like a company where I can do that, where I can work on that, and there are many opportunities to work internationally. This is something which I like. So, and no matter which company it is, I believe that everyone can influence her or his environment into a certain extent. So no matter how narrow your department might feel, there's always an opportunity to grow in there, and each job is just a part of a journey. You might start out as an R&D person, and then go to project management, and then go to product management, and then go to innovation management, like I did. So everyone can continue her or his journey on the way. So don't stop to grow, I would say. Have this growth mindset, feel empowered to change your environment and ask questions and grow. And so no matter where people are working, that is an opportunity. And if you cannot, maybe you should change.
Well, I really appreciate you have a very human-centric approach, right? Is like if you're the right kind of person, you have the right passion, you have the right resilience, maybe you have the right group of people around you, really great things can happen. And so I very much appreciate that approach. Someone that has that kind of mindset, I think, is generally a pretty introspective and thoughtful and reflective person. So what I want to ask you is, you've had these different career trajectories. You've had kind of a passion for thinking big and for making change. What have you learned over the course of your career that, you wish you had known decades ago that you now know now? What are those nuggets of wisdom that you'd like to share for the young minds that are hoping to do things similar to you?
Well, be patient with yourself. It's not the last step that you take. The next step is not the last one. You might be successful, you might fail, but everything that you do is a learning curve. Failing is good, although painful, but you learn out of it. So even if you're successful, you don't know why you are successful. It could be by chance, or it could be because you have prepared so thoroughly. But if you do a mistake, you know why the mistake happened afterwards, and you can change next time. And next time you're a little bit less wrong than the step before. And it's you're growing, it's a journey. Don't give up. Always get up once more, then you fall down. And try to find people that have also a growth mindset, because if you feel alone, that's really hard. But if you have other people that you can exchange with that also have like a growth mindset, or went through like some dark times maybe, then you could exchange and could ask questions and say, what did you do, or what would you do in this situation? What have you done? And then you pick up things and you try it once again, and next time you succeed. And if not, then you try it once again. So don't give up.
And actually, I'm also interested in how does that affect your parenting? Because you were explaining how you started not the most high-end roads from middle school, having a quite difficult trajectory going up and up. So I'm really wondering, as a parent, how does that shape you in giving advice to your own children?
Well, there's not the journey. There's not the career. Every person has to go through her or his own journey, I would say. And the time is ripe for everything, for the next step. And if you follow your heart, what is good, then it's a good step, because you're growing on the way. And so I have 2 kids as well, and they're going their ways. My big one is getting 18 next week, and the small one is 13, getting 14. And you're really working on their own careers, and once they have understood, I feel strange here, I want to change something, I try to support them on their way. Just be there and support your beloved ones, your most precious ones, your colleagues, to go for the next step, and be there. And then they grow.
One of the conversations I have with my son the most is, take your own path, but if you have that growth mindset, the path will unfold. And if there's anything that you can kind of instill in the younger generation, is that it's a long journey, and there's learning along the way. I want to touch on one more thing that you said in one of your last statements that really sparked some thoughts in my head, and it was the idea of failure. right? And I think it's a topic that is maybe more celebrated in other contexts than others. And I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, but in my hometown of Boulder, Colorado, once a year, they take all the failed entrepreneurs and they parade them down the street and celebrate their failure. I would say in some other cultures, including Germany, maybe failure is not as widely celebrated. The other thing I would say is in startups, failure is almost a badge of honor. It means you've learned things and you're not going to make the same mistake. In a corporate setting where there's maybe different risk-reward relationships exist, how would you say people deal with failure if they work on a project and it crashes and burns? Is it rewarded with the same badge of honor that a startup entrepreneur would be? And are there more repercussions than in other contexts?
Well, as you said, it's not so easy. It's really difficult to pronounce that. We just recently started a ideation campaign or a collaboration campaign in saying, okay, come on, people, let's share our failures, And so we struggled that people don't want to write that, in an official way. And it's, what is written, that the net is never forgetting. Once you have written something, it's always there forever. What does that mean? So people are very careful about that, and we are getting into it. We say we want to fail forward, and we want to enable our innovators to take calculated risks, to test critical assumptions, not in the way, because we are providing infrastructure. In our way, we cannot afford that a high-speed train is crashing on the way, because we are responsible for lives. We don't want to take risks on there. We cannot take risks on that. Not at all. 0, 0, 0, 0, But on the way, when we are simulating things, when we are testing in like mechanics or something, here we can fail without endangering people's lives or endangering our products or our reputation in a way that it's a protected space. And, this is what I call, failing is great because it's early enough that we don't fail in a product when we sell it to our customer. So getting cautious and active in failing and trying to find the mistakes on the way on your innovation journey is something, I'm not fearing, because it's part of the journey.
And I've talked several times about the crucial importance of having a safe zone in the company. So can you give us a concrete example of how you try to do that? What do I have to understand with a safe zone? Is it really that you have a separate place where people can do experiments, or is it more, in a more psychological way that there is a safe zone? What do I need to understand with that?
So in our Entrepreneurs Bootcamp, for example, we encourage our startups, our entrepreneurs, to take these experiments, to go to the customers and saying, well, I believe that you are always pressing this red button in your daily work. And so can I have a look on what you do? So people going into the workplace and looking on what the people are doing. And they're seeing there is no button at all. No red, no green, no yellow button. They have maybe, I don't know, maybe a signal or they shout at Alexa or whatever, saying now, and they're learning on the way. So it's always, difficult to approach the customer, because always also in corporations, customers are holy, never touch a customer was the expectation in the past. Now we are saying, okay, you can approach the customer, but you have to manage expectations, you have to step over that red line, interview them, listen to them, manage expectations, and you will hear that the customers have to say something, that they are happy to share their experience with you. You don't have to say much, but they will share a lot of it. You take your salesperson with you, your sales representative, so they are not fearing that you are spoiling the customer. And then both of you are growing because you can listen to the situation. And then you're learning, take back your learnings and work with it. And you can pivot your business model, you can pivot your solution, your service or whatever with the learnings. And do that not just 1, 2 times, do it 20, 30, 50 times throughout your whole innovation journey. Mm-hmm. And once they have experienced stepping over their red line, it's getting more and more comfortable and not awkward, So always, training, and giving them allowance to do that in a protected space. And then when they are through the boot camp, they have learned that they will not be punished for asking the customer or going out and asking someone who can help them to grow and pivot for their next innovation project.
There's a little bit of Steve Blank in there with some Chesbrough too. That's
learning from the best.
Learning from the best, indeed. Well, Christoph, we only have a couple minutes left, but I like to ask all of our guests just a couple silly questions to get a little bit of insight into the person.
I love silly questions.
Yeah. Well, I got a couple for you. So, can learn a lot about by a person by what they read. Do you have a book that you're reading or a book that you could recommend to the audience?
At my bedside table, I have 2 books currently. One is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F, which
Good one.
Is a tremendous book. And considering that this person it's his first book, wow, amazing book. I could just recommend it to everyone who is in a growth mindset, because you can apply it to your life, to everyday situation. I like it very much. Another book I read is from Reinhold Messner. He's one of the biggest mountaineers. The German name is Überleben. It's about life or survival. In German, you can connect these 2 words, Überleben, in survival or about life. And so it has different meanings, and it's about leadership on one hand. It's about getting over your own red lines and learning from that. And this is really a tremendous book from a person who has gone through all these depths and highs, you can ever imagine.
Yeah. I got a chance to meet him and hear him speak. What a larger than life personality Messner is. Amazing.
He's really amazing. Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. One other question for you to wrap things up. Going beyond books, what cycles on your playlist these days? What do you like listening to?
Well, music-wise, I love funk and soul music, and Tower of Power is one of my favorite ones playing. And it's quite an old band, but it's still wow music. And in my spare time, I also play trumpet, so I'm kind of horn-driven. So I love horn-driven music. And a podcast next to yours, which I've learned, is of course great. I like a little bit of optimism. It's also about great personalities and people that have walked through their growth, their personal journeys. And this is something I like also.
Well, Christoph, optimism, shake your booty horns music. You are the consummate optimist and positive human being. Wonderful to chat with you, and wonderful conversation. It was really great to have you and learn about the experience and kind of get your perspective on how big companies innovate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a big pleasure and a great honor for me to be part of this great podcast.
Well, folks, that was Christoph Krois, corporate entrepreneur and founder of the Siemens innovation ecosystem. Coming up in January of 2022, we'll be kicking off season 5 of our humble podcast with some really big changes. First, we'll be working with our new producer, Rushab Janwala. Welcome, Rushab. That means we're also saying goodbye and a very special thank you to last year's producer, Paul Apple. Paul has now joined the ranks of our esteemed guests and has become a startup founder himself. So keep a lookout for Paul and his new climate commerce venture, Eco2Grow, in your favorite stores soon. Aside from changes to our team, we have an impressive roster of entrepreneurs and innovators on deck for Season 5. So if you're keen to hear the rich stories of some of WHU's most successful founders and business leaders, you're really in for a treat. Bis nächstes Mal.